Hello, good evening all. Hi Francesco, hi Gary. Nice to have you on this space, Gary.
Oh, it's awesome to be here. Thank you, Francesco. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Gary. Francesco, how are you?
Hello, everyone. I'm fine, thanks. Very happy to see you.
Yes, definitely another great episode on our podcast. We have another important guest from the institutional world. So maybe with Gary, we had already several spaces on Bitcoin ETF during January, February, and March, and it was always a great insights from him about how the institutional world is seeing, and also how important were the ETF approval for Bitcoin. Maybe Gary, we can start with you giving your analysis of the current situation on Bitcoin, ETF, and macro. What do you think?
Yeah, thank you very much. And you're doing a great job, man. I really appreciate the content, the value, the different type people you're bringing up. It's really awesome. Truly a new generation for people to be able to learn, participate on a global level. I mean, I think this is just so exciting. And Bitcoin's I think, one really important part of this. I see a very structural shift that's occurring, right? As an entrepreneur and business guy, I look at this and go, whoa, none of the old players are in a position to move very quickly. This puts me, an individual, and probably half the people or three quarters of the people that are listening to this who don't have Visa's logo or MasterCard or the Federal Reserve's logo. Like, I've never had a fancy logo to walk into somebody's office, the CEO of Morgan Stanley, and go, hey, I'm ExxonMobil and you're going to take a meeting with me. I've always had to grind for it. So when you have this type of structural shift, like, it just offers so much opportunity because, like, no one has an advantage over me. This is the first time in my entire life where no one has had an advantage over me. Not even the guy that bought Bitcoin at $30. So, um, look, I think you picked a really awful day for me, right? This is your 13th episode. We got Bitcoin down from 70 grand to 66. So how am I going to explain, like, store of value? Um, I was on a space the other night, Alessandro, and somebody, how these guys come into these spaces and they conflate these conversations. And he kept talking about, well, Bitcoin's not a stable enough store of value. It's not a stable asset. And I said, sir, and everybody's arguing with him. I just asked him one question. Please tell me what asset is stable right now. Okay. The only stability in any of these assets, including the US dollar, is that they don't, like real estate, it's extremely unstable right now. But the difference is you don't have a chart showing that the price is off $4,000 this morning, right? And so it's a very real estate, like, I think real estate's highly unstable. It's extremely illiquid, and it has ETFs, right? So to your point on the ETFs, I think the ETFs were a big, big deal. But I think the flows that we have seen, this is no longer a theoretical exercise as to whether or not somebody's going to buy the ETFs. Dude, this is a colossal win for Bitcoin in terms of adoption. Okay, now I know there's some people that don't think having BlackRock sitting in there in the catbird seat is the best thing, but that party's come and gone. Like, to cry over that spilt milk, we should have regulated ourselves 10 years ago better. So we didn't, which most industries don't do this well. And now we got everybody and their brother in this thing. It's not going to change. So complaining about it now is not going to help us. What we need to understand is that we are now, for the first time in Bitcoin's history, truly on the path to adoption from the richest, wealthiest, fattest cats on planet Earth. Uh, the question simply is, when is price going to reflect the demand of Bitcoin that is I believe it's in its nascent, very, very early stage of adoption. And we're going to know in 60 days, right? These 13Fs are going to start piling out when we see the biggest names in the world. What happens when we see another 3 more states like Wisconsin, Texas, Florida start putting Bitcoin on its balance sheet? Much less, some of the big boys that are going to come in here. We had 994 investment firms, most of which no one's ever heard of. This is what I call the, 0 to 10 feet of the ocean. It's the smaller players, right? If you think of the investment community as a big, deep ocean, we haven't even touched 30 feet yet. I mean, these are new guys. They're more aggressive. Wait till the guy with $1 trillion walks in and he buys $500 million worth of Bitcoin. And I think that's to me, if I would have told any of you guys, I was on the phone the other day with Mark Yusko, and I said, Mark, if I would have told you 994 firms were going to put over 100 million each into Bitcoin in the first quarter of its launch, you would have said I was smoking crack. And some of you guys know Mark. Guess what he said? Oh, no, Gary, I knew. And then he started pulling my leg going, no, actually, it is overwhelmingly impressive. So we're winning, guys. Like, we are winning. This is what success looks like. Bitcoin's 15 years old. I love using this analogy. 15 years old, and it's invited to every private country club on the planet, dude. It's the only 15-year-old kid I know that's been invited, has a lifetime card to go into any country club in the world. And that means something to me, okay? Everyone is going to know about Bitcoin by the end of the year. There won't be a human being on planet Earth that doesn't know about Bitcoin. And I think 90% of our congressmen and senators are going to discover in the next 90 days they own Bitcoin, man. All of them, even the ones that hate it, they own Bitcoin. And it's going to be up. Their average investment is probably 40 grand. So they're up 26 G's. That's a pretty good trade. So that's my view on it. It's a really high-level view. It's not complicated. I don't have to do power laws or calculus. It's simply supply and demand.
Thanks a lot for the first highlight and overview, Gary. So firstly, on the space today, yes, we were discussing with Francesco that now Bitcoin went down from 70 to 66, so it will obviously go to zero. So we were thinking to cancel the space. Obviously, I'm kidding, but yeah, it's normal day in Bitcoin. Also, you said several interesting points. I think we can start from that. Firstly, you mentioned volatility, and this also, I think every Bitcoiners is struggling, is still having a lot of discussion with the contacts about this volatility. Maybe we can also elaborate more on that. I'm trying to explain to people that volatility is a feature on Bitcoin, it's not a bug. And people should not look at the daily price, because if you look at the daily price, then yes, Bitcoin is risky. But they should look with a different eyes, with different glasses. For example, if we look at the average weekly price of the last 200 weeks, so circa 4 years, Bitcoin is a great store of value. It's a curve that is keeping going up. So I think the problem is how people look at Bitcoin. I also say, if you buy Bitcoin and you hold for less than 4 years, then history showed that it's risky, and it is up to you. It could be risky. If it is more than 4 years, it has demonstrated that it was a great store of value, and all the indicators are saying that it will be even more a good store of value. Well, what do you think?
Yeah, look, I agree with you. I don't understand why someone buys. I don't understand why someone buys a 4 to 8 year investment and then gets addicted to looking at the price every moment. Like, they cannot possibly do that on their home. Okay, now they call their home an investment. Half of them do. Most women call their home an investment. I totally disagree with that. The point is, if it is an investment and you were looking at the price today, you should be selling it, right? Because there's no liquidity. The bid offer spread on real estate right now. I mean, I took a $300,000 discount on my house so that I could get out of it and buy Bitcoin. So these spreads are really big if you really want to move. What's 4 grand, dude? 4 grand is, what is that? 5%, 5.5%, 10, 6, 7%. for a commodity to move that it operates 24/7. It is the most liquid traded asset on planet Earth, assuming the proximity is more than 50 yards away. For sure, Bitcoin is the most liquid traded asset in the world. Any moment of the day, you can liquidate. You can't do that on anything else, including the ETFs. So, $4,000, $6,000. I mean, I don't think that's. I don't even look at it that way. Like my investment thesis isn't for. I don't even have a trading book on Bitcoin. So why do I bother with a 15-minute or a 5-minute chart? That's just immaturity, in my opinion. That shows me, Alessandro and Francisco, we need to do more education to the people listening to this that get into that kind of habituation of looking at price because it's exciting. It's that dopamine thing. And people need to remember also, hey, there's more dopamine when you have a loss than when you have a win. Okay, chemically, you are literally getting hammered with more dopamine on a negative, on a loss, or with a mess, than on a win. So I just
That
think it's
would
ignorance. I think it's ignorance, guys. Like really. I'm sorry, Francisco.
no, that would explain why people keep going to the casino for the sake of losing. This way,
Totally.
they just was enlightening. But to regard, you think that people who oppose Bitcoin now is because they haven't figured it out the sweet spot, the percentage of the portfolio, or is because they really don't want to study, they don't want to question themselves, their story, their study, their financial literacy. Do you think it's a matter of ego or as a matter of really technical issue, to figure it out the sweet spot to enter?
Yeah, I'm not sure it's technical because I don't think most people are technical. I think, I think this is about education. Almost everyone I know wants to live the life I have lived, which is building businesses. Hey, I want to be my own captain. I want to run my own deal. I don't want to work for anybody. First off, I love working for somebody. Okay. I like working with people and I prefer, like, I would not have any problem working for anyone as long as they're ethical and they're a great leader. Like I'm in, I can follow directions just as well as somebody else. I could probably follow directions better than I can lead, quite frankly, because I get frustrated with people. I mean, I just fired somebody like, hey, just get out of my place, man. I'm tired of bullshit. There are other people that are probably better at that than I am. I think most people let other people make their decisions. Okay, like there's a reason there's 43,000 investment advisors, 43,000, I think it is. Firms, those are firms. So there's, probably millions of people advising people. But I stopped listening to people on advice about things where they weren't better than me. Like I stopped going to people about financial advice if they don't have as much or more than I do, or at least have a very dynamic way of looking at something. Maybe they didn't pull the trigger, but they really understand the dynamics of it. I just don't think I think the last 40 years, we have just really given away all our power, man. Right. So it's now time I think the winners are going to be those people that study. And if we look at the people that are acquiring Bitcoin, like since 2020, the sailors of the world, notice the common thread. Okay. Nova Gratz, Yusko, Dan Tapiro, all these cats, okay, that are coming out of Wall Street, moving in, they all have similar characters. Okay. I would say these guys are the most, what's the word for it? The most animal spirit of big corporate, right? There's a lot, you know what I'm saying about the animal spirits. Like me, I'm a rogue guy, okay? Like if I was working for Goldman Sachs and they brought in an HR lady that I didn't like, I would leave, okay? I'm just that guy. I'm like, I am not working here for a bunch of crazy people. Most people can't do that. But I think if you look at the people, Michael Saylor, was going to lose his business. Let's be honest, okay? That crystallized his ability to say, hey, what else can I do? And that led him to Bitcoin. It's exactly the same reason I came here. I was looking at a business that I thought was worth $500 million that I owned half of. And I'm like, man, these multiples are going to get crushed. My business could get better, which it did. The problem was so big, okay? A non-mandated problem, by the way, in the credit card industry, but it was so big. One, it offered massive amount of competitors to show up. I never lost a dollar from more competitors showing up. But two, it drove me to understand, oh, wow, these multiples on exiting a business are going to collapse. My business could be just as good as it was yesterday, have less credit exposure, have more retention, more revenue, and I could sell it for only 300 million versus 500, just because the dynamics of the private equity market or the markets as they're perceived on Wall Street changed. I wanted to come to Bitcoin because I saw an outsized upside relative to the risk I was taking, and I had 300 people there. Okay. I had 300 people there in a woke decade. And I have a management team who half of them want to stick vaccines in everybody. So I'm totally in disagreement with that. Right. I'm like, God damn, get me into a business where I can just control it and I have no human error risk. And Bitcoin showed up in my lap. I look at Bitcoin as owning a private business. In fact, owning a monopoly. I have exposure to a monopoly. I've said since I was 28 years old, because I've competed with these people forever, that if I could ever own a piece of monopoly, fucking pay whatever you have to. That's what Chevron taught me. Pay whatever you have to have control. Don't even worry about the freaking number. You can deal with the regulator later. That I had to learn that at 35. Shit, dealing with a regulator, you just do it later and give them some money. But I now have an investment, a small percentage of Bitcoin, of the total float of Bitcoin. I have a small percentage of that, no human error risk, no regulatory risk. I have a monopoly interest and no regulatory risk. I am certain that NVIDIA is going to come under tremendous regulatory scrutiny. And if NVIDIA comes under tremendous regulatory scrutiny, one day Bitcoin's going to be big enough to go, whoa, like we are literally having the opportunity to invest in a monopoly, and I can't compare that to any other asset that has no regulatory exposure. So that's the way I look at this. See, the chart becomes irrelevant because when I was building Chargebacks 911 or Dynegy, dude, they're private companies. You don't know what they're worth. They could be worth $300 million one day and $800 million the next day. And then, the next year they're worth 200. So it's extremely volatile. These private equity firms, the building a business, now that's violent, okay? And it's usually negative. So if everyone's looking to run their own business, I look at Bitcoin and go, whoa, what freaking franchise, global franchise that has no regulatory issues, what global franchise can I buy for $66,000 that costs nothing to run every year? No K1s, man. No employees, no taxes. I don't need to own any real estate, no paperwork. Whoa, this is starting to look very impressive. So I'm going to make more money on my Bitcoin position than I made at Dynegy and every other investment I've ever made that took me 10 years to get liquid. Each one of them took me 10 years, 40 years, 4 different deals. 10 years took me to get liquid. I am going to literally make more money with less energy, less effort, and a much bigger return. All of them combined, in my opinion, all of them combined will be outpaced by Bitcoin.
It's interesting. We all think the same after we did work on enough work to have studied studied Bitcoin, and it's interesting in almost in every space. Then we go to the direction of education, and the problem is also people are not willing to do the work. For example, every Bitcoiners, I think once you discover Bitcoin, you want to talk to everyone about Bitcoin, but then you see that they are pushing back So after a while, you become more doing inbound marketing instead of outbound, like actively doing the marketing. For example, this space is an example. We have this space. We have around 120 people here. It was not we asked them to join. They are, every listener is interested in Bitcoin, and now they are learning from you also on Bitcoin. And I think the education is even more important because it's really misunderstood. Like gold is known, and if you study a lot gold, you don't have such a different opinion on gold versus those who didn't study gold because it's so well understood. But with Bitcoin, it's the opposite. It's impressive how different is the opinion of those who didn't understand, who didn't study Bitcoin versus those who studied Bitcoin. As you mentioned as well, the risk. When I say I'm very exposed in Bitcoin, also because I'm risk adverse, people they don't connect the dots. They say no, it cannot be true. Like if you are very exposed to Bitcoin, you should be a really risky profile. But this is very far from the truth. And so yeah, we it's interesting that everyone who is doing enough work, a lot of hours on studying Bitcoin, and then come up with the same conclusion.
Yeah,
Yes,
I agree.
also that binds perfectly on what Kiyosaki said, the author of the famous book. He said that Bitcoin has no competitor. It's a easy trade, quote unquote, because has no competitors. So you can invest in many companies, and then one stands out, and the other 9 no. And but Bitcoin stands out as the only solution possible to the Byzantine general problem. Therefore, its value stands out, and there cannot be any other competitor possible because that problem can be solved just in that way. So we have one solution, only Bitcoin, to a huge problem, and that is really undervalued. And it's unique as an asset, and maybe there is a technological barrier because it's difficult to understand. Quite frankly, I didn't know anything about the Byzantine general problem before studying Bitcoin. So you need also with the opportunities which they were in the 90s with the .com, the internet technology. For some people, especially the boomers, can be still a barrier, but for the next generation, of course, they are going to deploy a lot of their inheritance into this asset. It's just a matter of time.
I think it's not that as much as the technical, the Byzantine, but it's also people are not willing to question things they gave for granted. They don't know how money works, and they never question, so they think that it's okay. It cannot be that Bitcoin is better money than fiat, but it is. So they are not even willing to question this. But also, as Gary said, later on, likely with the higher price, everyone will know about Bitcoin and will want to have Bitcoin. So I think every person will have a price that trigger his brain on doing the study. For us, it was a lower price, so we are we are heavily in Bitcoin. For others, it will be 100K, 120, or 150. For some, we have to wait maybe 300K or 1 million before they get interested about Bitcoin. Gary, when do you think? Where do you think will be a price that we may start to see an inflection point? That also many of your contacts will stop to saying, okay, no, it's too risky, it's no intrinsic value, and so on. Do you have a price target in mind?
Well, look, I think first off, we've had 15 years of no marketing or horrible marketing. Okay, horrific. Pound sign, smash it again. Horrific. Okay, terrible. This is a problem with decentralization, and to have 4 different tribes out there all talking about how great their coin is I can't even believe we're still at 1.3 trillion. Quite frankly, that we're at 1.3 trillion with the shit show that has been a part of the marketing campaign is stunning. Okay, that says more to me Actually, I think 200 grand with Morgan Stanley and TD America and BlackRock marketing it, dude, there's no chance it's not going to get to 200 grand. Okay, it's the biggest marketing budget in the history of mankind. They don't even need new money, dude. They're just going to allocate. They're going to allocate some of their budget that's not doing crap for advertising, and they're going to focus it on digital. So people buy things that they're like we just agreed. Nobody really wants to manage their money, or very few people. Well, guess what? The guys that manage the money are getting ready to do the marketing. So I think that is more important. Um, I know a lot of people that would prefer to pay more for something. Okay, and I think the money that's getting ready to come to this market, they're going to be more comfortable buying $3 trillion market cap of Bitcoin. And I think that's the way I would encourage everyone to look at it. Stop looking at the price. There's a finite number of these. You also have to quit coming up with this, oh, what if Satoshi comes back? Dude, we've already given Satoshi a haircut, okay? My denominator is 21 million, but you and I know for certain there is not going to be 21 million showing up. At best, 18. So if Satoshi shows up with another million, oh, I'm really scared. I'm not scared, dude. It's not changing the 21 million. I've already divided it by 21 million. Stop it. These people are freaks, man. And by the way, we might need that million. Like the way I'm looking at it going, dude, you guys already bought 5% of the fucking float. Like we might need another million Bitcoin. Like you want liquidity in the market. You don't want 10, 20, $30,000 shit jumping all over the place. Now that's unstable. The price has gone up extremely well. Like if I look at y'all's power curves and I just zone out a little bit, you wouldn't short that thing. Not if you're having to short it for 1, 2, 3 year periods. I don't think you would. Looking at a long-term view. See, and I don't want to churn all the time either. I mean, I think investment. I read something the other day that activity is the antithesis to long-term investing. I don't need to pay a bunch of people fees to get in and out, trade nickels and dimes. I would rather do this instead of me looking at my chart. There's 200-300 people in the room. One person says, "Oh wow, the penny dropped. Now I get it." I think that's better value. So the price, I think at $3 trillion, the market cap of Bitcoin, well, I think dude, this money's coming in this door no matter what the price is. It might be 49 or it might be 149. The money is coming through the door. We are going to know in the next 2 months from the 13Fs, this money's going to be humongous. Like it's going to be shocking. I think the names are going to be shocking. And I'll bet we're going to see some more countries. We're seeing almost daily, we're seeing corporations go, hey, that might be a good strategy. Just had one in Canada do it. So I don't really think it matters. I think if price were to go down to 40, it'll make people more nervous than if it goes to 100. Isn't that interesting, right? It could go to
Yes,
200.
it's
You
like
know what
the
I'm saying?
network effect. Yes.
Totally. Now on network effect, okay, one thing I would love to do with some of you really, really smart guys. And I really like. I've said some things about these power models that, like, all of you guys are smarter than me. But I look at these power models and go, okay, look, I'm not a genius, but we've never seen a finite asset ever in the history of mankind. We have never seen a finite asset. Please let me know if you can find one other than you and I. And we devalue you and I all the time. So human beings do not have the ability to value uniqueness. They only value something that can be copied. It's really bizarre, right? Netflix, YouTube, Google, social media. I need to look good. Give me a bunch of likes, but who cares what the quality of those likes are? My brother comes in these rooms, he's like, man, my rooms are 3 million people. I'm like, okay, but I got 300 people in here that are actually interested. It's not just, that may have come across wrong, but you know what I'm saying? I think that's a quality of player here. The quality of money for me is very different. And too often we're just using a number. So my question to you guys is, when you analyze and tear apart a Facebook or a Twitter, and you start, for those that are listening, there's financial analysts that will go into a whole company and go, okay, General Electric is worth 12% of its business is worth turbines, 4% of its business is worth real estate, 2% goodwill, blah, 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 right? They just break down the entire company. I would not have met Francesco. I would not have met Alessandro without Bitcoin being in the world. I would not have, okay? Adrian's down there. Would not have met him. That's the glue that's holding this conversation together. What is Bitcoin's network impact or value, right? Not store value, the value that you and I have because we have a common religion to talk about. You show me money and you show me God. Take away God, there may or may not be a war. Take away money, there's going to be a war, right? So money's a big deal. And I'm starting to think that there's more value in Bitcoin to me, in me making connections. I mean, I have millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars in Bitcoin. I'm really excited about how many cool people I've met. I didn't pay extra for that. So somebody's going to one day figure out, oh, wow, this network effect is serious. I would love to know, like, do y'all think there's one penny of value for the network effect yet?
I think the same, like the real capital of institutional money, we only saw the apex, the upper part of the iceberg, and they will come also on this. I agree with you, in few months, not next year or in 2 or 3 years, because the product is the ETF. So they have to do a due diligence on the asset itself, on Bitcoin, and this will take months from January. But there is no accounting, tax, legal, any implication, because the product is super regulated. Once they approve a certain allocation in Bitcoin, the next day they can buy the ETF. So it was before, it was not even on the table. Now it is on the table. They're doing due diligence, and they will come. I also think that the 13F coming in July, August, we will have some pleasant surprises, and it will generate more interest, because the more institutions are saying, okay, we have an exposure in Bitcoin, the more common people will think, okay, then it's not as risky as it was maybe 2 or 3 years before. It's not only used by criminals. Maybe it has some value because it's always coming back from the bear market, so some value should be there. I agree in both that the real capital of institution will start in few months, and once for me, 100K will be the first trigger. And curious, I also think 3 trillion, it will be a big shift. Probably the moment where we move from gradually and then suddenly. It's not only for the how much market we have, but because now Nvidia, Apple, Microsoft, they are all around 3 trillion. And if Bitcoin reach 3.2 trillion, it's like 160K. It will be the second biggest asset by market cap. So I really struggle to see many people still going against or having a narrative against Bitcoin once it is the second most valuable asset in the world. So I'm looking forward for this time.
Yeah, also as Gary was saying, it's important the quality of the holders. The people, if we imagine a post-Bitcoinization world where the wealth has been transferred for these people who had it because of their connection, their power to the money printing, and to the people who have acquired it because they deserved it, because they studied it, because they had the intelligence and the spirit to take a leap and to look into Bitcoin more deeply and to understand the value. And the values behind Bitcoin are the values of the Austrian economics, which are a lot wiser than the current world. So when Bitcoin reaches 6 figures or 7 figures, we're going to have people who have better attitude to the world than the current picture we have nowadays, and that has additional value, because if capitalism should lead us towards a better world, a better society, well, Bitcoin is clearly the key here, and is a revolution not only for a financial standpoint, but also gives the opportunity to the people who maybe would have never had in other circumstances. And really looking forward to see who will stand out when we reach 6-7 figures, and what these people are going to be able to do with the lots of capital they're gonna hold. It's very exciting. It's really also is an investment, but is bound with a lot of hope and a good outlook for the future.
Yeah, for me, building on both those comments, I also don't think that, like, we have to remember, okay, January the 11th, the ETF was approved. I mean, we've had a regulatory process for this that's almost as bad as the marketing for Bitcoin, right? So, like, everything that could have gone wrong on Bitcoin has kind of gone wrong, except it never broke against every bloody attack. It's internal and external attacks, horrible marketing. We're still here. We have an ETF. We know for sure that 994 companies, small little players, deployed 100 million each or more. That begins game theory. Remember, these people, I mentioned the country club. The reason I mentioned the country club, I don't get invited to that shit, guys. Do you? Okay, I don't have the $1,000 dinners with the head of Visa. Okay, even though I was spending $10 million a year with them, they won't even let you like participate in their little club. So here we are. And I agree, Alessandro, we're going to see some big players in July show up on the 13Fs. That will only create more game theory. Okay, we're going public. Oh, wow, XYZ company put $250 million into their fund. I'm going to just close on this comment right here. I think all of these people, all the individual investors they represent, all the people like my brother who has not come around yet, and that's a very interesting conversation to have about his inertia. See, he has a business. Like, he has a business. He raises money from a lot of different small investors, right? Imagine if he started like, oh, well, let's see, I'm raising $150 million for 1013 Fountain View in Houston, Texas, for that 9,000 bedroom facility, but I'm putting Bitcoin on my own balance sheet. So I'm going to buy real estate with your money and make a 2 and 20, but I'm buying Bitcoin. That's a problem for him, right? Now, we'll see in 10 years if he really cares, if it changed his world. Where I'm trying to get to, I think most wealthy people, the 406,000 ultra wealthy families, dude, they're already maxed out on everything else. They're maxed out at NVIDIA. They're maxed out on the MAG 7. They're maxed out on equities. They're maxed out on bonds. They're maxed out on real estate, villas, prostitutes, airplanes, chartered airplanes, and anything else you could buy. Rolex watches. Dude, Rolex, all the watch market's declining. The charter airline market is declining. Air private jets are declining in value. This is starting to turn now. People can only fly on so many planes at one time. They can only live in a villa so often. So I think this is, like, I call this max consumption period. Like, we're at absolute peak consumption. Even the poor, right? Well, all we do is talk about the poor. They're at max consumption. Dude, the super rich have bought everything they possibly can buy except moonshots, Mars shots, and Bitcoin. And I don't think they're going to buy Pepe, dude. I don't think these people they're going to move into Bitcoin. Maybe a year from now, 2 years, they'll buy Pepe. But first off, they're going to buy Bitcoin. Does that make sense to you guys? I don't know anybody that's got $8 billion worth of cash like Warren Buffett. I mean, imagine if Warren Buffett said, dude, I bought $1 billion worth of Bitcoin. Do you guys think the price would stay right here? No chance, man. You're
No
going to
way.
have 10 Warren Buffetts say that in 2 months. 2 months.
And also, no one want to be in the first row. So now many financial advisors were still skeptic at the beginning, but at the same time, no one wants to be in the last row. So once we reach a certain amount of wealthy people, wealthy also pension funds, insurance funds, admitting or reporting 1, 2, or 3% in Bitcoin, I think there will be like a Bitcoin rush, similar to the gold rush in California, but much faster because it's digital this time. And gold, you can mine more gold. Bitcoin, more than 0.8% for the next 4 years, you cannot mine. And after 4 years, it will be 0.4% with the scarcity becoming more and more scarce. So definitely, we are in good seats, I would say. We're ready to enjoy the show.
Yeah, that's for sure. And listen, I totally understand too that it's difficult to push through an organization a concept that it's going to just get a lot of gravity, right? People are going to be like, whoa, wait, we don't even know how to. I mean, imagine a finance department. The CEO is a great visionary, right? Hey, we're going to put 20% of our balance sheet on Bitcoin, and the CFO is going to be like, dude, I don't want responsibility for that. I don't know anything about that. I'm going to have to go hire a whole group of people. I mean, you're asking, we're having to break through inertia. So this is going to start at the investment level where people can make a return on their investment, get acclimated to this asset. And the big question to me is going to be, who's going to rebalance? Like, why the hell would you rebalance something at 3%? That's the other argument. Alessandro, you've been around longer than me. No one a year ago was talking about 3, 5, 8%. They were talking about half. Fucking no one's doing half. Okay, nobody. It's 2.5 million to start. A buddy of mine did 20 million. That was his first trade on Bitcoin. Dude, I'll take $20 million worth of it. He's a billionaire, right? Like multi-billionaire, tons of real estate. All of his distributions are going into Bitcoin now. You watch what happens. Okay, this cat's going to take $300 million of distributions from real estate. That's probably 20 million a year. Fucking buy Bitcoin with it. Right? See, now he gets it. You got to own this thing to really understand it. You cannot do it like my brother, looking at it from the sidelines and doing it spaces. My brother has not studied this properly yet. That's it. That's the problem. You spend 25 to 50 hours, you will spend 100. I've never seen anybody spend 25 hours and not spend 30. I've never seen anybody spend 25 hours and not invest. Ever. Have you? Do you know anybody spent 25 hours studying this shit and did not invest in it and just walked away? Proper investment in education, not listening to spaces.
Yes, I agree. So these spaces like we have now or podcast, it should be we should make people curious and people make people think about Bitcoin. But then the real study should be on history of money, on how economics works, scarcity, and all the rest. It's not just listening to space. This I totally agree. What we can do the most is making people curious, and then they do the work. I also agree. If they are doing 25 hours, then they will do more. For me, also, one point I was thinking, okay, I read other 2 or 3 books, and then I will be okay with learning about Bitcoin. And after 1 or 2 years, I'm still learning every day from podcasts, from articles, and so on. It's like never ending. And also, we cannot ask heavy allocation with 10 or 20 hours, but at least to have like go off from 0 or from 0.5%. It's time not to discuss anymore about 0.51%, but at least for the new investor, about 3, 5, or 10%. This allocation should become more significant. But this should be according to the conviction, and a conviction can come only with education. Great point on this. Francesco, what do you think?
No, I think what is missing, but it just is because it's very early. are the academics, meaning that I started doing some education for treasury managers, businesses in Europe, and then when the first days, then I explain to them, they understand, but then they look at the academics, the which protect the Keynesianism, the Keynesian system, and they, at that point, you explain the Austrian economics. They know about the Keynesian economics, and they have to choose. At that point, either they believe in scarcity or not. And the inflection point maybe will come from a number for a certain six figure or something, I don't know, but can also come from when the test of the guards of the academics breaks. And when the guards of the academic breaks, then the system can be questioned. I see them as the ultimate guards of the system, but I mean, just Ray Dalio spent some really timid, really shy, good word some months ago, but then some big silence from the academics. And so, because I think the investors, most of them, they look at what the common way of thinking says, and they just follow along. So we really need, because the university academics, economics has a big weight on their decision, and they don't want to make mistakes. So we really need also some enlightened academic to shift his narrative. But will happen, yeah. Do you know any academic who changed his mind? I didn't see any at the moment. It's not that it's not a problem for me, but that it will be an indicator in the future. Maybe can take months, maybe come very early.
Definitely for them it will take more, because they have to question even more their knowledge, and they have to admit that their knowledge they had, that they thought it was that one, no question these topics, for example, how economics work, and they have to put into question. So it will come later for them, I think.
Yeah,
At one point,
go ahead.
At one point there will be a price when they say, okay, Bitcoiners were right. It could be 100K, it could be 300K, it could be 800K, but there should be a price.
What my feeling with them when I talk to them, a couple of LinkedIn, some conversation, I really find them intellectually dishonest. Honestly, I don't go ahead the conversation, because when they are put to the point and then demonstrate that the scarcity is really a thing, they say, "Oh, it is too complicated," or another thing to just you don't know how the process of internal banking works. I don't know where they hide the money in the bank, and then they put it back again to the retail. So sometimes I don't expect these people. They will do everything to protect their life, because they are professors, academics. That's what they are. What if what they have studied and touted for decades is false? And that's a big problem. And that won't be easy. It won't be easy for them. But you know, maybe the six figures will do the work better than the academics. It will be interesting to see.
Well, I think, that this is my point. And I don't mean to offend anyone that's an analyst, but analysts analyze things. Guys like me pull the trigger after we look at it. Like, we don't overanalyze stuff. I don't think I think Saylor did a really good job of, the real challenge is converting your entire team. The guy at BlackRock, his name is Mitch, what's his last name? Mitch Slapp or something like that? Mitch Robert, what's his name? He has done an unbelievable job of bringing those people on at every level, too. I mean, they are really in the space. I mean, if we need more validation, look at the work BlackRock's done and how consistent they're being. They are tokenizing the entire planet. This is why I bought Node 40, because my view was you cannot partially digitize planet Earth. We will go all the way. You're not going to go halfway, okay? We're moving so fast into a future of connectivity. Look at what's happening right here. There's no Bitcoin to. It's just Twitter, dude. We're using decentralization. We're not even talking about transparency and all the stuff that, like, this is decentralization is happening, even if it's clunky and it's through a quasi-centralized facility. It's still giving us the leverage that decentralization offers, which is lots of people, lots of votes, lots of voices. The analysts are going to come along when they come along. I've been involved with a lot of big deals, man. And one thing I've learned, you guys in your spreadsheets, this is why I get a little frustrated on the power model thing, and I'm not trying to make little of it, but I don't need that chart. I don't need anything to justify what I'm doing. First off, I think these charts and these spreadsheets, I mean, I was working on a deal once that was $2.5 billion. Dude, they're just, once they like the deal, it's really down to how I pitched it. They're going to model out that $2.5 billion is going to be the right solution for that company. Like, none of these models are right. I have never seen a model that turned out correct. They're guesses. And my guess is there's 21 million units down to 18, and there's 406,000 super rich people that overpay for anything. They buy 1,000 Bitcoin in an airplane, and I'm not bashing that, okay? There's some real cool tax consequences. Dude, these people trade these planes every 3 years, right? So, like, buying 1,000 Bitcoin, you and I think it's a lot. For these people, they're like, oh, 40 years. I mean, go look at what the cat, I think one of the most interesting cats in Bitcoin is the Mexican Salinas guy. Go listen to the way he talks. He looks like a little child when he talks about Bitcoin. He looks like a 15-year-old boy talking to his 21-year-old teacher, and he's totally in love with her. And he's found the best thing on planet Earth. I mean, this guy's body reactions are staggering how excited he is about Bitcoin. When I look at these personalities, I'm like, oh, these are beasts, man. These are guys that they bet really large sums of money on a view. And that's how they've gotten so rich. It's not because they're cowboys, or wildcatters like they used to call them in the oil business. They're looking at this going, dude, there's only 21 million units? Really? Like, there is an infinite amount of crude oil on this planet. At $500, dude, crude oil is everywhere. $3 natural gas, it will flood the market. Nat gas can't stay at $3. It just keeps getting beat down. And we will just go on with more and more studies. My pilots, I will have one pilot in my airplane in 5 years. I won't have two pilots. The other one's going to be a robot. So if you believe that we are digitizing planet Earth, we ain't going to use US dollars for that, man. It's too slow. No offense to it. It's old. It's like a horse and buggy. We have Ferraris showing up. And the problem is we don't have any roads. So we're going to have to build all the infrastructure underneath that, which then offers an opportunity as an industry to deploy millions of jobs without a $250,000 education. That seems pretty cool to me where we're headed, right? Nobody's going to be able to spend $250,000 in 4 years and then get that money back by going to work in the future. Do y'all agree with that? That shit's over, right? Because you and I are going to be able to study at twice the speed of these people going into typical schools. So everything's going to change. I'm stunned that people don't get this, man. Like, to me, it's like so natural that we're not going to go back to the 8-track tape.
Yes, I think understanding new technology has always been a problem for human beings. From the automobile replacing the horse, to electricity replacing gas, to internet replacing the telephone. There was also Fred Krugman, Nobel Prize on Economics in 1998. He said the effect of the internet will be the same as the one for the fax machine. In 1998, it's not in 1983 or 89. So the majority will come once it will be very clear, let's say quite clear that Bitcoin is the best store of value, and everyone gets the price of everyone gets Bitcoin at the price of this it deserves at the end, right?
Yes, many of them are also confused because there are 25,000 touted decentralized coins, and that always happen. But I want to take a chance to remind and just to share with you how I see this thing. For me, Bitcoin is a currency, it's hard money. It's also, but it's also a land or the new TCP/IP, where you can build many things if you want. And then the incentive are aligned also for that, but the market will decide. Currently, we have Ethereum, we have others, but I want to stress that for me, that decentralization is a feature of Bitcoin together with time, can be used, and you can tokenize, you can do whatever you want on top of it. But it's better, it's advisable, in my opinion, if you have to do, you do it on Bitcoin, because it's decentralized, really. And decentralization is a matter of 0-1 concept. Either you can stop it or not. So nobody has stopped the Bitcoin. Maybe can the other 25 coins be stopped? I think so. So those are not good. So that's the only advice I would like to spread out there. And just think about decentralization as a feature, a good one, very important. But don't be fooled, because decentralization is very hard to achieve. And aside of Bitcoin, I don't believe trust in any kind of decentralization possible. It has to be showed, because proof of work is unique. And the network of Bitcoin is that big that has been showed us to be really impossible to censor. I don't know. What do you think about this, Gary? Do you trust this decentralization in some other coins, or do you wish also this decentralized system to be built on top of Bitcoin layers, as I wish?
Yeah. Well, let me address something that both guys were talking about. I just pulled something up on the internet. Just going to read something for like 1 minute. But here are the people that said the internet wasn't going to be a thing. Okay, just show how smart these people are and how you can miss it. Robert Metcalfe, the inventor of the Ethernet, predicted in 1995 that the internet would collapse in 1996. Clifford Stahl, an astronomer, wrote an article in 1995 titled "Why the Web Won't Be Nirvana." And he says, the truth is no online database will replace your daily newspaper. No CD-ROM can take the place of a competent teacher, and no computer network will change the way government works. Blah, blah, right? Bill Gates, the founder of Microsoft, initially skeptical in 1994. The internet, we're not interested in it. That's what he said. The internet, we are not interested in it. John Allen, Internet Explorer, predicted in 1993 that people would be too polite to do anything bad on the internet. Nicholas Negroponte, the founder of MIT Media Lab, predicted in 95 the internet would be dominated by walled gardens where companies would control what users could see and do. That probably is accurate. Paul Krugman said it would have no more impact on the economy than the fax machine. And Andy Grove, the former CEO of Intel, predicted in 99 the internet would go away as a major phenomenon. These are some smart people, extremely well paid. They completely missed the changing of the guard. So do I think other things will be built on it? Sure there will be, man. There's going to be off ramps, on ramps. There's going to be different tools. There'll be different wallets in the future. ETFs, I think, will provide self custody at some point. Look, the capitalist market's going to work. Let it work, man. I'm building a company around it. I think it's good that America didn't make all digital assets illegal. Okay, that would not have been cool for us. Even no matter how we got there. I mean, my only concern on my investment in Node 40 was, oh shit, if the US government kills all other crypto, it really reduces our addressable market. Now, as a Bitcoiner, I'm cool with that because Bitcoin's going to just pick it up. I just don't think Bitcoin's ready to go full adoption. And like, I think that we've had enough false starts, over promises, and under delivery. I'm really cool with Ethereum or XYZ coin or 123 coin trying to build something around this digital asset world One, it will show Bitcoiners what they need to do, where the gaps are. And two, it provides some time, some maturation, some education to the market. Cool, dude. Go do something for 3 years. But that's what MySpace did. They didn't survive. AOL, they didn't survive. In fact, the guy, Intel, where the fuck is Intel today? Okay. They're like, ooh, they got smoked by NVIDIA. IBM, you haven't heard the word IBM in like years, unless it comes out of my mouth. I just use them as an example of here was once a great God who is no more, right? Why? Because they got a bunch of analysts. They can't change their quarterly earnings stream. The quarterly earnings on businesses is such a problem for innovators. You do not innovate anything unless you're Google and Amazon and Facebook, who are allowed to buy everything that moves. You're not going to innovate on quarterly trying to hit quarterly earnings. Okay, you're going to have to like spend some money, invest some money, like I do, and then wait. And then 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, then you're pounding it, right? You're really making the money, but you're not going to build a digital business on quarterly earnings. I don't think that's going to happen. Which means that all the legacy players really are at a extreme. I think the legacy players have more problems than we have by a factor, like a 10. They just can't move quickly enough, which means that the adoption on this is going to be a really long tail, which I think is good. You don't want all this money showing up at one time. You want it coming over long periods of time, big flows. Those flows increase over time. And I do think they will increase because I'm not sure they can go anywhere else. Well, we're going to rebalance. Rebalance to what? You already have too much real estate and you got too much MAG 7. So where are you going to go with this? I mean, it's a kind of a weird thing that half a percent of the money all the money on the planet is controlled by 0.5% of the people. Well, if that's true, they can't rebalance.
And even then, so firstly, as you said, it will be a big. It's not only short-term flows. For example, the gold ETF, it was released on 2003 or 2004, and gold went on a 7 or 8 years bull run. And gold was quite known. Imagine with Bitcoin. And secondly, yes, even if they rebalance, I think this deflationary, this negative effect of rebalance will be overcompensated by an agreement or a general agreement to have higher allocation on Bitcoin. Like maybe people, they start 1% and then they should reallocate after maybe 1 year or 6 months if they become 1.5% to 1%. But at that time, after 6 months, the world or the institutional world will more align not to have any more 1%, but to have 2%, 3%, 5%. So I think we are leaning more towards people allocating more and more than rebalancing. And even if they rebalance, it will be overcompensated. It will be interesting to see, definitely. Another topic.
They'll probably rebalance into Ethereum.
Okay, yes. Also,
if you do think about it, when a bunch of these wealthy advisors come on, I would ask them this question: hey, what are you guys going to rebalance to? Oh, we're going to rebalance to cash. Dude, you already have too much cash. Why would you do that? Now, you might want to park it for a while. To me, this is a really interesting question. Well, there's two things. One, what are you going to reallocate to when it doubles? Then two, this other thesis, right? This Bitcoin, I own Bitcoin physically versus I own Bitcoin through an exchange. Now, I have heard this my entire life, that he who owns the natural gas physical contract versus the futures contract will be in control. He who owns the crude oil barrel over the paper contract will be in control. He who owns the power, the electricity, the actual kilowatts, will do better than the guy that's holding paper. I will give you a dozen examples where, in fact, holding the physical traded at monster discounts and really Nat gas, negative prices, crude oil, negative prices, electricity, negative prices. I do not believe that can happen on Bitcoin, personally. Um, but my point is, there's a thesis in the Bitcoin universe that says the physical coins at one point in time, in other words, self-custody, should have greater value than non-self-custody. I have never seen that actually work for long periods of time in any other commodity market that has both physical and paper. And I'll be very interested to see if it were ever to be true. It should be true here, but I'm not sure that's the way the markets are going to work.
That's a very interesting and quite a controversial point that ETF brought. I am also feeling on this different from other Bitcoiners. So I think it depends from the person. If the person feels that self-custody is the best way, then he should definitely go for self-custody. If he's sensible to freedom, censorship resistant, and is willing to learn about the self-custody, should go for that. But not everyone has the same sensibility. Also, a father of a family, he will need to learn. I don't see, he has a brokerage account. I don't see him spending hours or weeks in order to learn self-custody and then self-custody their Bitcoin. If it is his sensibility, then good to go with the ETFs. Every way we custody our Bitcoin through self-custody or multi-sig or ETFs as a risk. A person should be aware of the risk and then should decide for himself. Also, it should be like freedom of choice of the way they would store Bitcoin. Like, it's a store of value. How you store your Bitcoin is up to you. Important that you're aware of the risk of each ways. And also, I feel as well sometimes in the Bitcoin world is too much. Oh, you should self-custody or otherwise nothing. But also self-custody comes with a risk. If you don't know self-custody, and then you can also lose Bitcoin. So person should be evaluate the risk and choose by himself.
Yeah. Hey, listen, I agree. And I don't mean to be the controlling the conversation, but what kind of got me to this point, I got into a couple of arguments or debates with people about greasing the skids of commerce, this concept of using Bitcoin to buy potato chips. And like for me, that's really weird, right? That I would have a store of value, I think probably the greatest store of value mankind's ever seen. And then to use that to buy potato chips. And my reasoning is this. One, I don't think you're really getting Visa and MasterCard's attention by taking away one thousandth of a transaction from them. Two, if the merchant doesn't give you a severe discount, because it is better than US dollars, why would I use Bitcoin to buy potato chips at $1.09 and my fiat purchase is also $1.09? Like, I need incentive to give that merchant something other than $1.09. Why? He has no access to refunds, no exposure whatsoever to no exposure to chargebacks, and it's an 8% net fee. Once he accepts the $1.09, he pays that off to Visa. So, like, just doing that flat is actually helping Visa. It's not helping Bitcoin. Um, so for me, if this is the greatest store of value in the history of mankind, and I have to self custody. That's the view. Hey, self custody is the best. Well, am I going to get a premium? And you may say, hey, the premium is they're your Bitcoin. You can have them anytime you want. But is that really going to show up in price? I mean, I've never had a bank steal money from me yet. Okay, so it's like maybe they will one day. Maybe I'll wake up tomorrow morning and I'm broke because all my money's gone. But unless I'm going to be able to get a premium for self custody, and I'm not saying I don't self custody, I'm just going through the argument of, hey, I should get a premium for that, right? And I don't hear anyone talking about that. Like, if it's so good, at some point I should receive a premium for the work I did. And maybe that's because maybe your answer, Alessandro, will be, hey, dude, In a liquidity event problem on a Saturday afternoon, you'll be able to move Bitcoin through self-custody and buy things a lot cheaper. Now, if you're telling me that, dude, I'm all over it. Okay, because it's the most liquid asset. Cool, I can buy a piece of real estate on a Saturday afternoon at 8% discount because the guy's got to close, or I buy a company because the firm has to close tomorrow morning, or it needs cash for Monday morning payroll. These are awesome uses of Bitcoin, but I am not going to do it at the same price of fiat, right? Because I actually respect the Bitcoin much greater than I do the fiat.
Yes, also this is follow the theory that you hold the hard asset and you spend the weak asset. It's not by chance that our podcast is called Bitcoin as store of value, because we see Bitcoin, the narrative that matters the most at the moment is Bitcoin as store of value. It would be great to spend the last 20 minutes on this episode exactly on this important topic. My thoughts on this, I also wrote an article about it, quoting also many significant accounts. So first, let's separate the Western world, the first world, versus the third world. In the third world, it makes more sense the need of medium of exchange because they have different problems. But our world, so Europe, US, Canada, Japan, and Australia, and the rest of the first world, don't have, doesn't have, all these countries don't have a medium of exchange problem. They have a store of value problem. So the store of value problem is much bigger. Also, Visa and MasterCard, yes, you pay transaction sometimes 1%, 2%, or 3%, but it's good enough. I'm also sometimes debating with Bitcoiners, say, yes, but Bitcoin is open 24/7 and the banks are closed, are open only 8 hours during the day. So last time I went to a physical bank was 10 years ago, and I never had a problem with that transaction. So the likelihood that we will have a problem with transaction is very, very remote. This is one. And second, I think also Jesse Myers-Croesus was highlighted this, Vijay as well. One of the problems is the first Bitcoiners were thinking that Bitcoin would have spread as a medium of exchange first. So we have to push the merchants to use Bitcoin as medium of exchange, and we should push people to use Bitcoin as medium of exchange. While studying the monetization of the asset, and there were posts of Vijay Boyapati, of Corey Clipston, Michael Sale, or Robert Breedlove, they all say that an asset firstly become a collectible, then become a store of value, is used as medium of exchange, but by a small part of the population, so like those who are really interested in the technology and as a medium of exchange. So for them, I would say go all in if you're interested in medium of exchange. But when we talk about global medium of exchange, this can happen only after it becomes a global store of value. And before becoming a global store of value, we need the ETF, we need adoption in terms of store of value. Only once we reach this level, then there could be demand also for Bitcoin as medium of exchange. That's also my position and what I'm trying to explain.
I will say that if I can, it's true, but there is a medium of exchange case in the first world right now. Is the use case of freedom. People are looking to be censorship resistant, and that's the people why they utilize Bitcoin. Even if, as Gary said, and we all know that that you have to spend the bad money and save the good money, so you just want to replace it, but you can use it as a medium of exchange to impose your freedom, your will over the world. Nobody can censor you, and that makes sense. What regarding the role of the banks and the custodian? Well, the fact that for people it's difficult to self-custody. Well, it's because the engineer didn't find out a better solution for now, meaning that the banks could act as an element of a custodian plan, where they can give deliver their service for some money, for a fee, and then this plan of a custodial plan, non-custodial plan, but with the help of the banks, can avoid the single point of failures but we have yet to get there as a technical solution. So there is also this argument that we didn't reach the ideal wallet solution or so forth. Maybe to this point, to really give a role to the banks as custodian, but while avoiding them to seize your asset. But it will come, like when in 2009 there wasn't multi-sig the game later, so many other things will come and make things better. Don't know if you have...
Technology, I will say also technology is a moving target. When there will be more demand, there will also be a better solution. But to have more demand, we need more people owning, holding Bitcoin and being exposed on Bitcoin. Before we reach this level, it will be difficult to have really easy solution. Easy, not for Bitcoiners, because if you're interested, if you're sensible to freedom, to censorship resistance, to technology, then you're already in Bitcoin. But the common people are not so sensible on these topics, so that's why they prefer other ways. Gary, what do you think?
No, the last thing, we have already collaborative custody, you know. So there is what is the incentive of collaborative custody is that you decentralize the risk, you spread the risk. So when this risk, if you pair this risk with the ownership of the seed, when this risk is lower than the risk of keeping more than $100,000 on your bank, then the bank as a custodian will have a role, because they cannot fail and you cannot lose your deposit. So that's also really something we are looking forward to see in the following years. But I wouldn't rule it out. Absolutely, it will come.
Yes, maybe in next years when there will be more demand. Gary, what is your thought on this?
Well, I think we only have a few months now to really understand where the quality of the demand. I do think this is very, very important. The quality of this money is very different than Bitcoin's ever seen before. I think I'm making that as a factual statement, okay? And it's part of my thesis. Whoa, which is, by the way, a part of the story you guys told me. Like 4 years ago, you guys like, hey, we have got an opportunity to front run. That made sense to me because I know these people. They culturally can't move like we can. They're going to analyze it to death unless their back's up against the wall, which mine was, Sailor's was. And I think most of the guys in this business are like, oh, shit, we got to get out of here. We're going to die in the old world. Once we see this quality, I think it's going to kind of speak for itself. Because everybody's going to be on our side of the basketball team, man. Like everybody's going to be in our bleachers, okay? Elizabeth Warren is going to be sitting in our bleachers, whether she likes it or not, because she's going to own Bitcoin. I mean, this is going to be so pervasive that now they're all owning a piece of paper, okay? It's not really Bitcoin. But so far, it looks like the futures market's been able to control the spot market. And I do get back to it's kind of interesting that we didn't really address this question is at some point, Bitcoin self-custody, self-custody should bring a super premium to the market. If it doesn't do that for long periods of time, I'm not sure that it gets back to the potato chip thing, right? If I don't get a discount from my potato chips, I'm not giving you Bitcoin. And it has to be a substantial discount for me to give my Bitcoin that way. Let's remember, we don't control when we give that $1.09 to the potato chip guy, we don't control whether he keeps the Bitcoin on his balance sheet, right? What if he converts it to dollars? All we've done is paid, like we've accomplished nothing, really. Like you guys, the biggest money on the planet's getting ready to come into here. I just don't know how an industry responds to that. I have never seen an industry when everyone turns, 180 degrees, okay, we're in. And they're doing it pretty much all in the same year. I think this is a vintage thing now. All the investment players are going to say, okay, we got our clients into the 2024 vintage of Bitcoin, and that'll be their little. I mean, there'll be a smart marketing guy in their department going, hey, we have to launch this in 2024. We've kind of fucked our customers around here because we've been, holding ourselves and thinking about this too long. Let's tell everybody we got them in 2024, not knowing most people won't know. Yeah, well, 2024 priced between 15.8 and 100 grand. But you definitely don't want to say we're going to put people into the 2025 vintage. That seems really late. So I think we have game theory going on now. Like it's kicking in big time. And the next 6 months, we should know if Bitcoin is going to be a massive herald success. Somebody said earlier, hey, when are we going to get these big? We should get a candle that represents $1 trillion, half to $1 trillion of market value. We should, man. That's $25,000 to $50,000 movement in call it less than a month. It just happened with NVIDIA for over $1.5 trillion. This is a public company, man. Okay, this isn't supposed to happen. Where the analysts are so brilliant, these markets are so perfect, they missed $250 billion on one afternoon. Okay, so I am certain, Alessandra, that Wall Street doesn't know how to model anything perfectly, or will. They missed NVIDIA 3 times, man. So that tells me they don't really understand what's going on this planet, right? Like the change now is just accelerating, which should put Bitcoin in do what it was supposed to do. Add to that, we have submarines reportedly, might be fake news as far as I know. We got, Russian submarines off the coast of Florida. And we got NATO most certainly messing around the Ukraine. We're in a shitstorm here. We have, it's if Bitcoin was ever going to shine, this has to be the 4-year cycle that it's going to really, really take the world stage. I don't think this is a long haul to know. And your downside risk must be highly limited, right? I would think the downside risk is fairly limited. Anyway, I'm just repeating myself over and over, really. I mean, I just go through a number of different scenarios where I can get hurt. And I isolate all those and then start looking at the upside and saying, hey, this seems like the safest bet with the greatest amount of upside I could possibly engage in.
Totally. No, it's not going always in the same topic, but especially the last part also is many Bitcoiners are saying, and I'm also saying to my colleagues, my contacts, my friends, that is the biggest asymmetric opportunity and information, and especially this year where the risk rewards ratio has never been so favorable as now. Maybe like in 2013, you could have higher gains, but no one will go full all in or with 50% of the net worth in Bitcoin because it was very risky. Now it's not that we like risk, but we evaluate many risk, the downside risk, and we believe after so much studying that these risks are not that high. Now that said, everyone should allocate according to this conviction, not of what me, Francesco, and Gary are saying. We are sharing the information. So yeah, it will be just. I agree. That, firstly, I also like what that you say. It's about months, 2 months, 3 months, also 6 months, but it will be this year. Other are saying more 2025, 26. I don't think we need to wait so long now that we have an ETF. It will
I
be
agree
this year.
With you, man.
Yes, I have the same feeling.
I don't. I mean, maybe it's first quarter 2025. I'm not saying the run in 2024 is going to be over, but
sure,
we should know. My for the audience, what could go wrong? My biggest concern, and this is always a concern for me when I'm building these businesses, is okay, what's the market condition going to be like when I get out? Like my first business, I sold all my stock on one day after being with this company 17 years. I dumped 100%. This is the kind of guy I am, though. I'm like, I'm holding. And then the president of the company said one thing to me. He said we were going to make $1 billion in cash the next year. And I dumped every drop I had. I then gave them notice that I was going to retire in 6 months. I watched that stock go from $57 down to 60 cents in 6 months. And none of my buddies got out. This has been my big fear. In every deal I've ever done, it's like, dude, I don't want to get trapped in this fucking business. Like, especially because I always own chunks of it, like half of it or 42% or all of it. And my fear on Bitcoin has been these crazy freaks are going to fuck everything up by us having a global war. And then I'm sitting on 1,000 Bitcoin and we have Mad Max world and it's a shitstorm. And who cares how smart I was? It's a shitstorm. This is my greatest concern about my investment in Bitcoin. The truth is, okay, well, that's going to happen to all my other assets also. So it doesn't really matter. But I am deeply concerned of where we're headed and that we're all going to get screwed. Even though we were smart and we made the right decision, we're going to get screwed by these psychopaths who seem to want war more than they want prosperity. That's pretty cool. That's a pretty cool thesis to have when the only thing is nuclear war that concerns you. I've never had that thesis, that kind of able to package that kind of a problem up. And I still think the long term, if I can hold through that, Bitcoin will still be awesome through that, but it could be really, really painful.
As you said, if we really are towards war, even on nuclear, but the global war, then is not having Bitcoin the problem. We will all have big problems. The whole economic system will have big problems.
Yeah. And it's also interesting, Alessandro, and then I know we're ending up here, but it's also interesting to me that people talk about BRICS and these other micro markets that are being developed. That is very, 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 very good news for Bitcoin. Okay. If we have 5 markets, everybody, the US dollar is going to get crushed. Dude, we need multiple geopolitical markets. They will need, all of those guys will want a neutral currency and they will participate in that basket. The more game theory we have going on, the more valuable Bitcoin becomes because it's that neutral thing. Gold is no longer neutral. Bitcoin, for at least a period of time, is going to remain somewhat neutral. We don't need the United States to do it. We just need a couple of the BRICS or whoever. It would seem to me like it would be cool to make up a basket of assets: crude oil, nat gas, aluminum, some Bitcoin, some US dollars, some Russian dollars, whatever, right? Just a basket of goods. Whole world's resetting, Alessandro. I think that to me is the way we end. The entire planet is resetting, and we need a different mechanism to really take us to this next world.
I agree on this topic. We will see in the next on this more mid or long term. We will see in the next years. As you said, also, I think we are approaching 90 minutes. I think maybe we can wrap up here. First, I will say many thanks, Gary, to join our episode and our podcast. It's really valuable insights, and especially the class of 2024, 25, 26 would like to listen to arguments like yours and less the one from maybe the cyberpunk or crypto anarchists from 10 years ago. So there will be, that's why also what the new class will need the more, like Bitcoin as a store of value. Do you have any closing remarks for the listeners?
I love what you're doing. You guys follow this cat, follow his friends. He's doing a really great service for the whole industry. This is the way we're all going to team up. And, just like, I know we all have differences, okay? It's cool. Let's figure out what we are more similar with, and let's be a tight communion. The enemy is out there. The enemy is not in here, okay? The enemy is the opportunity to really do well, to prosper against the system that's been built against us. So like, if we can just remember there are other people listening to us, and when they see and hear us arguing over silly things, it doesn't help build our case. So that's the only thing I would just encourage people. Hey, what I don't expect everybody to think and look like me. But I do know, like, if you own Bitcoin, dude, there's something we have that's really powerful. I don't care if I want to self custody and you want to do the ETF, cool, dude. I want you in Bitcoin. I don't care how you got there.
Many thanks. Also very, very insightful. Francesco?
Yes, absolutely. Was a really pleasure having Gary here. When who had many ventures, a lot of investment in different assets, and then ultimately he came to Bitcoin. That's remarkable because he really had the time and the chance and the experience to evaluate everything, and then everything leads to Bitcoin. It's amazing to see that over and over repeating this path, very common among successful people. Thank you, Gary, so much, and talk to you very soon, like is happening often lately. Thank you.
Thanks, Francesco. I can double down to what he said for all. And yes, Gary, we will have also a chance to have other X Space. I really enjoy conversation. Just want to comment on the topic that you said. I forgot to comment that how important it is that we met new Bitcoiners and how valuable is for us. We are doing also this podcast. One thing for educating people, but also to have the chance to discuss with the very significant account people who studied a lot Bitcoin, and we are also enjoying every single conversation. This is the 13th. We enjoyed every single one, and we will enjoy even we will enjoy the next ones. Bitcoin is a great space. My last recommendation is always the same: study Bitcoin, and considering we are in 2024, do it quickly. Thanks all. Thanks again, Gary, and see
Thank you, buddy. Thank you, guys.
in one of the
Appreciate
next spaces. Bye bye all. Have a nice good night for if you're in Europe, or have a nice day if you are in US. Bye.